Okay, fine. We'll start our session for the day. Good morning once again, students. Today, we will discuss one of the important but the prominent technology which was in support of the cloud for its enablement. That is service technology. In the previous classes we had discussed few technologies, but this is little bit of different varied or else, different essence of technology that we'll be discussing altogether. Okay, so in the previous discussions might be we would have discussed about certain technologies that can be supported in the form of hardware or in the form of software. Both the combinations used to be there, but here in the service technology, remember, entirely only the software components will be supported or considered for the cloud's enablement. So the thing is, why only the software part is here? The service technology is the kind of technology what we are discussing is, though it is a part of the web development, I can tell it cannot be. Of course, it is subsidiary to the web technology, but I can tell that service technology, especially when you are talking about the cloud, okay, so you have to understand how the services are being working, how these particular service really come into an existence, and how these things can be consumed for any purpose, I can tell. But here the purpose for our sake is, for our concern is the cloud. Okay, as we all know that everything, each and everything that is coming out of the cloud will be in terms of a service, isn't it, right? So sticking on to that, it is evident that the way in which these services are being developed, okay, the way in which these services are being developed, these play, or as these has boosted the diversity of services that can be guarded by the cloud. As I told, if you remember, there were only three fundamental delivery models, that is SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. But at later point of time, there existed other services like in terms of database, like database as a service, network as a service. Like these kind of services has started into the existence. Okay? The reason for such variations in the service provision is this service technology. This service technology. Okay, so you have to understand that. Okay, in the web technology we discussed about the client and server model, isn't it? How and when and why the requests will be communicated between the servers and the clients, and what level of control is being generated on the client end and the server end. Okay, so this service is something like, it's it is in the business process. If you observe, it appears to be a forking a child in the operating systems process. It appears to be in that sense. I'm sure you people would be knowing this, our operating system processes, and forking that particular child. Okay, it is called as one major process will be going on, and from that major process, to fulfill the activity of that major process, okay, a sub child process will be generated in such a way that few of the activities will be taken care by the child process, and once the result is there, it will be merged into the parents process. Okay, so in that sense, to that level, okay, you can just compare them. Okay, for the layman's understanding, okay, you can take into that particular sense. Okay, so when a business model is there, definitely you'll be coming across multiple entities, multiple flows of the business. Okay, so while such flows are being identified, and to make that flow into existence, okay, these services are being used. I think in the previous examples I was telling you that the kind of modules that are available in the Niva, okay, are entirely service based, isn't it? Okay, so a link, a URL will be enabled on that particular what to say, on such particular buttons, or on such particular entities of that particular web page, in the sense objects of the web page. Either it can be text or button or any other thing. Okay, so there some sort of action will be defined, and that particular action is defined in terms of this particular URL, which calls this particular service. So till here we are clear how these particular things are done. Okay, like there will be client, there will be server, and each and every time the request is raised, automatically it will be going to the server, we have told. But we did not discuss how this particular connectivity will be taking to the respective servers, how this connectivity will be taking to that particular respective service. That is what we'll be discussing about here in the service technology with respect to the cloud enablement. Remember, our limitation is towards the cloud's usage only, isn't it, right? So we will see the components of the web services, or else various in various ways how the service technology can be consumed for the cloud enablement. That is what. Okay, so first we will see what are the components of this web services. Usually for creating this particular service, definitely you need to have a markup language, isn't it? Similar to that of web development. You had HTML and XML, isn't it, right? But here in the web services development, also you will be coming across a markup language, what you will be calling it as WSDL, which is nothing but web service description language. What this WSDL will be usually doing is this markup language will be coming up with an programming interface only. That is one API it will be developed. That is it. Okay. So this API will be communicated to the end user in the form of embedded web. That means a web page will be there. There will be many objects in that web page, and this API of one particular service, what we are referring. Okay, so that particular service API will be embedded on this web page. It will be mixed with the other objects of the web page, isn't it, right? So this API, when it starts triggered, when it gets triggered, is in the business flow. Either the user has to opt that particular service, or automatically the business process has to trigger upon this API, or the business process has to trigger upon this API. Okay, so what happens after this triggering is, the URL, basically it's an URL. Okay, so the request to the server that is present in this location, okay, it will be moved on to that particular server, and further response for that particular service request, okay, will be entertained. Okay, that's about WSDL. Okay, and other component is definitely along with the WSDL, there is one more language, what you will be calling it as schema definition language. You will be, most probably you'll be using XML all the time, okay, and hence it is called as XML schema definition language. But if you have that feasibility, you can go with other schemas definition also, or else in those schemas can be defined in other senses also. It is purely, how the messages are to be exchanged between the web server, what I mean to say, where this particular service are running, okay, and the client. That is it. Okay, and the other one is other component is simple object access protocol. So now we are done with the languages. Now how this particular data will be moving. So remember, in the web technology we had discussed, it moves through the HTTP, but here it is called as SOAP. That is nothing but simple object access protocol. So this is a kind of, this different set of rules basically, okay, to send or else to govern how the messages are to be sent, in what format the request should be, and in what format the responses should be, and how the communication will be happening between the client where the request has been raised, or else between the API from which the request is being raised, and the server that is entertaining the response for such particular request. Okay, so this protocol helps. In short, we'll be calling it as SOAP. That is a SOAP protocol. Okay, And last component is a little bit of registry kind of component, what we call, okay. So this component is a universal description, discovery and integration. Universal description, discovery and integration. That's what it is. In short, it is called as UDDI. Basically, this is a registry component. This is a registry component. And what will be maintained in the registry? Usually in the registry, the information about where the service is being started and how this particular service has to be entertained. This kind of linkage is being provided by this uh, registry. That is the name. That is the reason it is called as, discovery and integration. A request has been raised. Okay. Now, if that request is raised, it has to be reached to respective service component server, isn't it? I mean to say, in server there will be services that will be running, and in that server, respective service has to be gain the response. Agreed or not? Okay. So for that purpose, this registry maintains a track of the services that are available, where they are available, and to what component they are supposed to get integrated with. So all these registry will be containing entirely the definitions of the services and where they are existing, I mean to say where they are being published, and how the services can get accessible, how the services can get accessible. That means it is a kind of, like catalytic catalyst that enhances the proper connectivity between the services and the service servers. In that sense, we can tell it is something like, a directory. Like, you are looking for something and you exactly don't know. So you will say, for example, if you're looking for a phone number, okay. Previously, you used to look in telephone directories, but now you are searching in the Google and Just Dial or similar kind of sites. Okay, they will give you the phone number. So what exactly those Just Dial are other kind of websites are doing is they are trying to maintain certain data, and they are trying to integrate the people who are in need of certain service. Say, for example, I'm looking for hospitals. Okay, so immediately in the Just Dial, if I type, okay, it provides me entire the list of hospitals that is around me or around my location, and it also gives the contact numbers and other things, isn't it, right? So that is what is the registry does. So similarly, when a request is raised for with respect to some service, okay, that becomes the input, and this registry identifies which server has to be entertaining this particular service, and accordingly the direction information in terms of WSDL definitions, okay, it will be available for service request processing. That's about the basic components of service technology. On the other hand, there is one more variety of service, what we'll be calling it as REST, REST service. Okay, and this service is called as representational state transfer service. Okay, so what exactly happens here is, as we know that the entire system flow is been identified in terms of the business logic, and the business processing will be done. Okay. Okay, so in the business process, or else you will be identifying the business logic progression in terms of the states. In terms of the states, it is very much similar to that state transition diagram in the what in the software testing what we had studied in the previous semester. Okay, so it is something like, this is one particular state. Okay, if it moves to the next state, okay, that it will be in another state. That means this particular service will be maintaining a track of the states and how that particular representational is happening with respect to the current existing state of the business process. So basically, these are set of constraints you can be telling. That means you can see that the business flow is one particular state, and to ensure that that particular state has been attained in the business process, okay, so there are certain conditions or constraints. Okay, so these constraints are to be fulfilled. That is it. That is it, isn't it? Right? Okay. So if you come across that, okay, this particular constraints are fulfilled, then automatically it is identified that now the business logic is in this particular state, in this particular stage. You got it, and hence is the name representational state transfer. Okay, so if these all of these constraints are fulfilled, then automatically the current state is ready to transfer to the next state. Again, when it moves on to the next state, again there will be some constraints on the next state as well, and those constraints will be validated and verified. And if all those things are done, okay, then it will be moving on to the next state. So this is continued. This is continued till it reaches to the server. You got it. Okay. So this is how the REST services will be working. Remember, I am discussing about REST in terms of cloud services only. I'm not going deeper about how this REST services really function. You got it. You have to keep this in mind. That's why, of course, now I have taken only one slide's help to explain the rest here. But usually, it can go up to unit level when we talk about the REST service and its implementation. You got it. Okay. So in other sense, you can tell that, it can emulate the properties of www. It just emulates the properties of www. Okay, why this has been considered in the cloud is REST will be sharing common technical interface with all the clients in the form of uniform contract. That means the technical interface will be one and the same, but once the interface receives the input, then automatically from this particular interface, it will be moving on to the respective service directions. In the sense, what the API in the previous discussion we had discussed, okay? So that sort of API is being handled in terms of REST. That means in the previous slide, I had told you, in the WSDL language, okay, an API will be formed through which we'll be communicating, isn't it? So that API is being prepared. That API will be written in terms of REST. It will be written in terms of REST. Okay. So once you have this REST service, you can also use HTTP method also for your communication. But there are design constraints, isn't it, right? I had told you there will be certain constraints on each and every state, and which represents that this particular, this is the state, this is the current state of the business logic, isn't it, right? So let us see what those design constraints of the REST are. The client server, stateless, cached, interface contract or uniform contract, layered system, and especially the code on demand. Okay, so these are the constraints. We will not discuss deeper about how these constraints will be impacting the communication and how these constraints will be fulfilled to take care of things. Okay, we just name the constraints and we say that, okay, these constraints, these set of constraints are helping to emulate the properties of World Wide Web. Okay, that's it. We will not be going much deeper about the how these constraints can be. On the other hand, you can see the third method. See, till now in the service technology, we had discussed the basic methodology, okay, and in the how any service technology can be working. That is what we had discussed. And secondly, we have discussed about the REST service, and thirdly, we'll be discussing about the service agents. Just a moment. Sorry. So till now we had discussed the basic methodology, how any service technology will be working, and the other one, second technology, we have discussed the REST services kind of technology. Okay, and thirdly, we will be having certain service agents. This is third way of attaining the service technology. Okay, so this is something like Okay, this is something like, they basically, these service agents will be like event-driven programs. Okay, what they do is they will be, sitting there, sitting in the, in between the client and the server. Okay, so they'll be embedded as a kind of object in the web page, and there should be some event occurrence should happen in such a way that this particular agent will get activated. This particular agent gets activated. Okay, so by activating that particular agent, what they does is, once the service agents are activated, they start intercepting the messages during the runtime. They start intercepting messages during the runtime. See, one example I can be giving here. As I told you, the client side processing that can be done when you are, client side response that can be observed when you are filling a form, isn't it, right? I had given you, if you don't enter, what to say, certain mandatory field, then automatically you will get a response that you have to enter these fields, you have to mandatorily enter these fields, kind of thing. Okay, you know that, isn't it, right? So if you remember that, okay, so that is the event that has been triggering certain piece of a program here in the client end. That means there is certain logic, okay, and that logic will be activated only based upon certain predefined events. Okay, so here when you are not entering the mandatory field data, automatically it starts triggering certain service agent in such a way that, okay, it intercepts the messages during the runtime itself. That means it identifies that there is a problem here in the runtime itself. That means during the execution itself. That means when you immediately move from that mandatory field to another field, immediately you get that response. Okay, this is a mandatory field, you have to enter, or it will be shown in red color. So that's the way of intercepting the messages. Let's not worry about in what ways it can be intercepted, but just do understand that, okay, immediately the response will be occurring. Immediately the response will be occurring in the sense, okay, in runtime, but in the rest, you don't call that as an in the runtime level. Okay, it also happens in the runtime, but it has to take at least one particular state to complete its identification. But here, immediately, in the moment that particular event is occurring, automatically, whether it is in the current state of the business logic or it has to move on to the next state or only few particular designs, okay, no way it is concerned to that level. Okay, so immediately, if you observe that this particular event has happened, then automatically this piece of code will be activated and it starts its own work. So what's its work? Its work is to intercept in the runtime only, intercept certain messages in the during the runtime only. You got it? Okay, automatically. See, few people when they are creating their user authentication, immediately, when you type in for the passwords, okay, automatically there will be a kind of hint that will be shown. So your password should be of this length. It should contain alphanumeric characters with at least one special symbol and one capital in the alphanumeric. Okay, likewise, kind of information, the hints that will be given. Okay, so all these are all the examples of service agents. Okay, now you can come across two types of service agents. One is active service agent and another one is passive service agent, where you can see the functional differentiation between these two. Active service agents, what actually they exactly do is they trigger upon certain actions in terms of intercepting and reading the contents of the message. But on the other hand, when you look into the passive service agents, they do not change the message contents, but they just intercept predefined message. That is it. They just intercept the predefined message. Say, I was giving you the example of this password, isn't it? Right. So let us assume the constraint is, the password should be of 8 characters length, and it should be alphanumeric, and the third one is at least one alphabet should be in capital, and at least one special symbol should be included. So let us assume these are the four constraints, isn't it? So when I start entering the password, okay, if I enter the password without numerals, okay, so out of these four, uh, okay, probably I have entered I have satisfied all the things, but I did not enter the numerals. I have entered only the alphabet. I have entered what to say. Uh, mm, I have entered 8 characters length. I have taken care that at least one letter will be in capital, and I have taken one special symbol. But I did not use the combination of alphabets and the numerals. So if this is the case, okay, what active service agent will be doing is, it observes what exactly the action that has been performed, and it tells what is being missing. What is being missing? I mean, it can prompt that. Okay, it can prompt that. Okay, seems that you have entered the password, but it doesn't have any uh, what is that numerals present in that password. So immediately the user will be able to understand clearly, how he has to remodify that particular request, isn't it, right? Now, if a passive service agent is used, okay, it doesn't edit the message that it has to show. Now, again, it validates for the, all the constraints, but if this particular constraint is not met, what is the constraint that is not met? Alpha numericals are not used. Only alphabets are used, not numbers. Okay. So instead of showing only this constraint mismatch, it shows all the four constraints. That means it will not be intercepting the messages. It will not be changing the messages during the interception. Okay, so usually we can come across, I mean, according to your business logic, you can think about the active service agents and the passive service agents. Okay, that is one type of example what I have explained you to understand how these active service agents will be intercepting, and how the passive service agents will be intercepting. Okay, only to understand for this particular, but on the cloud's purpose, okay, these service agents will be entirely handling uh, the service levels entirely. What I mean to tell, the entire services and service functionalities that are being defined, okay, they can be taken care of. But for our understanding, I have taken here an example of just one particular field and a constraint on that particular field's entry. That is it. Similarly, to get certain services, okay, there will be many such service agents will be there. I can think about one more example. When you start purchasing in e-commerce like Amazon, okay, so you can come across buying options, isn't it? You can come across buying options. If you opt for certain banks, okay, this much amount of percentage is needed. If you opt for some other thing, okay, let us assume if you use Amazon Pay, then you will get flat 10%, or flat 20 rupees or 30%, likewise, isn't it, right? So that sort of payment options will be there given, isn't it, right? But there will be certain clause, API, what is it, Amazon API payment should be, that should be the first connectivity of the month. First utility of the month, in the sense of for the first time you are doing this payment only with the API, with the Amazon thing. Okay, so in that is a constraint, isn't it? That is a constraint. Okay, so if you are using their service agent, then automatically, if you are using this API payment for the second time, that is Amazon Pay interface for the second time, then you can get a message telling that, okay, for this particular paying, okay, you will not be getting the cashback. Why? Because this is not the first time's usage. But if you're using the passive service agent, the end user will not be knowing whether he'll be getting the payment, he'll be getting that offer or not. He'll be getting the cashback or not. Okay, why? Because the passive service agent doesn't change the message. It just intercepts, and it just moves according to the business. Okay, so this is a kind of business tricky, or else I can say, or else business logic that are being implemented for the benefit of the business doers. You got it. Okay. So that's how the service agents will be functioning. On the other hand, you can also have the service technology in terms of a middleware. Remember, middleware is something like an a program, a small set of program, okay, which can be talking on behalf of certain components, or else you can call it as an brokers also. Brokering program also you can be calling it as. It is something like when certain function or certain activity has to be happening on the other end, and you can be taking some other's help with it. It is something like how you give the proxies during the attendance. Okay, so when I call the roll number, okay, if the roll number 2 is absent, then automatically some of his friends will be calling his present. You got it. Okay, so that then that person will be calling as a middleware person. Okay, so what here this particular person is doing, he is able to communicate between the faculty and the roll number 2. That's how it happens. So you got it. Okay, so this is what is the middleware basically. Middleware is, or else middleware technology. You can come across middleware technology entirely, okay? And you can come across the middleware technology. You can see this middleware technology here in the client server technologies only, okay? It is a part of the client server technology, okay? So exclusively, if this middleware is being used for the services, you can you can consider it. You can consider it. Okay, so you can name that component as service middleware. Just a moment. Yeah, right. Okay, so if that sort of middleware is being used for service deliveries, okay, you can be calling it as service middleware. Okay, and you can see that these middleware, as I told, when they are brokerizing, okay, they provide a facilitation kind of platform for integrating the service requests and the service responses. Okay, usually the middleware will be available in highly complex service compositions. Highly complex service compositions. It is something like the lawyer, whenever I think you would have seen these things in many movies. Okay, when the police arrest some person, or else, okay, when police want to interrogate some person, okay, so he has to be interrogated in the presence of the lawyer only. So lawyer is the one that creates that sort of facilitation, comfort facilitation for both the police and for the other person. So in that sense, okay, you can identify the service middleware facilitation is being happening, isn't it, right? So with respect to the cloud, you can observe that the service middleware is being used at the bus level, that is enterprise service bus level, and orchestration of the platforms. So what we mean here by the service bus is, as there will be many what to say, networking routes will be there. Okay, the connectivities, the buses that are being connected here within the clouds network. Okay, so they need to take care of the routing, and they need to handle the message queuing in a proper sense. So that activity will be done by the service middleware. And also you can think about the environments that are being created in the cloud for hosting and the execution of certain business workflows. Okay, so all these things can be taken care by the service middleware. So with this, I can tell that we are done with the first part of our discussion.